Hello folks and welcome. openSUSE Plasma Desktop. So tips for new users. Just going to move my mic a little closer to me here. I'm going to talk a little bit about resizing your panel bar, menu, and also a little bit about your file manager. We can also talk about sample shares, how you can connect to that, and also using Secure Shell SFTP. A little bit of this and a little bit of that, as they say. So let me get this out of the way. I am filming in 1080, even though my monitor is in 4K mode at 225% as an FYI. And we can talk about installing mouse cursors, where they're installed, and all kinds of stuff. So welcome, folks. Welcome. Start with the panel. Right-click, show panel configuration. You want it bigger? Hit the panel height. And there's a whole bunch of other options in here. The menu itself is not really that explanatory, but if you grab the corner with your computer mouse, when it changes to the arrows, you can click and move it down, whatever mouse cursor you're using. Okay. If you see these little green dots, it usually means that you have a new installed program or application. Now I reinstalled VLC, you can see that it says new on it. I haven't clicked it yet. I just wanted to leave it there as part of the demo. I'm using GPU screen recorder today, and you can probably see the little red dot downstairs. All right, I'm gonna make that a little bit smaller. And so the yellow thing is installed in a hidden folder. Control H, dot icons. I also installed a manual one. So let's go look at these where they're normally installed if you open the menu. So just type in mouse, look for cursors. So I used the system to install this one, and then I manually installed this one. That's why the trash cans are red. These are grayed out. These are installed in USR share icons. You'll need root permissions to remove these. Not so much with these. Except if you do hit the trash cans with these, they will immediately delete and it'll bypass your trash can. I generally use the file manager to uninstall these things. How do you install them anyways? Well, you can hit the three dashes and get new. And you will see a disclaimer here. If you're looking for a success rate for 99%, you may want to watch some of my other videos for that if you're having difficulty with a certain mouse cursor. Keep in mind these are user-created, generally. That's why there's a disclaimer here with the Plasma desktops. But generally they also have issues with other different desktops. But if you've ever seen my videos on mouse cursors, mouse pointers, I also point you in the direction of how to install these things, usually manually, with having almost a 100% success rate. Like I said, about 99%. So I installed this one manually. As a matter of fact, it's sitting in my download folder right here. So I downloaded that off of a certain website. And in those videos that I have for mouse cursors, I actually make mention of where that is located on my YouTube site. In either case, I'm going to move on. So don't forget that you have different sizes with certain cursors. You hit apply, and always recommend logging out and logging back in on Plasma desktops. All right, now let's talk about some other toys. Besides the software Discover Center, we can do some other stuff. We can download files from other systems on our local network. So I'm just going to generally talk about just images. So your file manager Dolphin is set up in the way that we can either look at our home screen or look at the home screen with hidden files. How do we toggle between the two? That would be holding down the control key and hitting H as in Henry. Will show you your hidden files and folders. Control H, now you don't see them. Control H, now you do see them. So those mouse cursors again are installed here. I generally create this folder myself on all Linux distros. And I manually install them in bulk. I have videos on that. All right, let's get back to here. Since I'm going to be using Secure Shell a little bit later, I do have a .ssh folder, and I apologize for that. Let me turn the ringer off on my phone. And there's a known host file in here. Okay, So since the thing is currently in hidden mode, Control H, that's why a lot of times you just want to toggle this back and forth. Okay, so in either case, this known host file is holding a security certificate, actually 2 of them. Okay, for the same machine actually. Let me make it bigger for you. So it has an IP address ending with 116. There's the EDSA and the RSA certificates. And the ED22519s are very common. Okay, but it's all the same machine. Yeah, that's a lot of stuff. So generally when you're using SSH, you can either have public and private keys or just using security certificates. And that's what I do on the local network, because I don't need any of that fancy stuff, because it's just one of my machines on my local network. But it is sitting behind 2 firewalls. All right, in either case, these are also Samba shares, and that's SFTP. How do I know that? If I toggle the address bar, Control L, you'll see either SFTP, Control L, or SMB, Samba shares. These are generally not here though. So what I'm going to do is remove that and click the network. All right, I'll make the icons a little bit bigger. I'm holding down the Control key while scrolling up on my computer mouse. Shared folder, SMB. All right, if I double click, since I made absolutely no changes to my system, I did not install anything to do with network shares or secure shell or any of that stuff. Okay, but the clients are already in there. You just need to know how to use them if you've never done this before. And I'm going to assume maybe a couple of you out there. So you see no share folders. Am I sunk? Now, how do you think I got this? Well, I got it by putting in an address in here. So Control L. Now I put in SMB : 2//, or you can let the system do it for you. Click in here, and what you'll need is an IP address, Internet Protocol address, or where those shares are. That part I can't help you with. But this is on one of my machines. Again, this is sitting behind a couple of firewalls on my local network. And you can see the 2 share points, share 1 and share 2. That's just what I called them. When you set up SMB services on different computers, you can allow the files to be read only, or you can do a read-write. Again, not in the scope of this video. I'm just showing you how to connect and how to make shortcuts. I already have the 1. I want to put the share 2 also in here. So I'm going to click and drag, and I'm going to look for a blue line underneath this thing. Right there. The blue line is underneath my network. You can see the plus. I'm holding it with my mouse. I'm going to let go of it. All right, these 2 symbols are different. Why is that? Well, this is SMB and this is SFTP. Secure File Transfer Protocol is a little bit more powerful than that is. So SharePoints generally, again, you put the folders in on the system and then connect to it to either pull files from or pull and also place files. In other words, read and write. Okay? SFTP, on the other hand, you normally have full control. It's like remote of all the folders on that user. This is like remote connection, that you have access to the user's complete home folders. Yes, I actually do have these in use. This is actually my iPhone. This is my wife's. And what are they? Well, they're just photos and videos. I have 8 gigs worth of data there, and my wife is always taking pictures of everything. I made this joke before. Constantly, 18 gigabytes currently. So there's an app on the iPhones that I can do this with because this machine stays on my local network. So I have to be behind the firewalls when I do make backups of these. And then I make backups of the backup here automatically using cron, C-O-R-N jobs. And then I take these big, huge 28 gigabyte files and then I store them on a different system as a third way of backing up a system. Yeah, you can do a lot of stuff on your local networks. So how do we do SFTP? Well, I'm going to start with the home screen. Hit Control L as in Larry. Okay. Our user for today is Sam. It's just a made-up name. SFTP. Keep in mind, I did not install any secure shell on this system, but the client is installed. The other system that I'm connecting to is got SSH server services running. So I'm connecting to another system. So it's SFTP, Secure File Transfer Protocol, colon, the 2 dots in other words, 2 forward slashes, not backslash. And here's the question. Did you set up your machine using private and public keys? Probably not. That's usually not required on a local home network. Usually the security certificate keys are plenty good. But in case you did, you probably aren't going to be bypassing maybe some of this stuff. So right now I'm going to put in a username on that system. Since this does not do local resolution, in other words, computer name.local, I'm going to use the IP address instead. Okay? But I will first show you the name of this machine and then use .local just to have a little fun. And you will see that it won't connect. It will say hostname not found eventually, because it's right now scanning. And it's using port 22. You can see that I didn't even put that in there. Failed to resolve the name MX99 on my local network. That's okay. I'm going to change that after the @ symbol and put an IP address. And it connected immediately. All right, now that I have this sitting here, I'm going to convert the address bar into what I can read, Control L, and then grab a hold of that folder symbol and then drag it right underneath the icon of the network for a shortcut. Okay, now there's going to be 2 of them. All right, so I'm going to get rid of one of them. So that's how you do that rather easily. So while we're in here though, let's do something productive with it. Double click to go full. And if not, use the diamond. I just like to double click. I can also click and pull to go back to the previous size, or just double click. All up to you. F3 is a little magic here which does split pane. I'm going to click in this screen and do the home thing. So you can see they're different currently. The beauty of also using your mouse and your keyboard to do some magic with, I'm going to hold down the control key, scroll backwards with my mouse, and then move my mouse over the medium here to this side of the house and scroll up and down without clicking. This is grayed out. This is black. That's the active pane, but I can still resize the icons on both sides of the house. I'm going to let go of the control key. I have only one picture in here. So let's click on this side of the house to make that active. Now that's grayed out. And go to pictures. And then since I'm using a network connection, Control L, SFTP, I don't get thumbnails. If you activate the thumbnail part, which I know some of you folks know how to do, to go through configure, there's a setting in there for that. Sometimes you get weird glitches with security. I'm not going to go through that. So I'm going to take this 6 JPEG and click and drag across. It's asking me what to do. Move, copy, link, move into a new folder, or cancel. Well, I'm going to do copy. Holding down the control key, scrolling up. Holding down the control key, scrolling up and back. I'm still, where am I active? While I dragged it across, this is currently active. Now this is active. You can see a slight change in the shade of white to gray. All right, without having to have the thing prompt at me, I'm going to click and hold down my control key, then click and drag. It didn't ask me any questions this time. That's a copy process. If I want to do 3 at a time, the 12, 48, 142, and 31, I'm going to come in, click and drag across. Then I'm going to hold down my control key and deselect that one. Let go of the control key, press it again, and click and drag these 3 over. You can always back up the video if you didn't get those steps. Okay. I demo everything that I do on my 500 plus videos. That's why they run long. Because we have Linux folks of all skill levels out there. If you feel more comfortable doing it one at a time, you can. Can you do folders? Absolutely. I don't know what's in here. There's 2 screenshots. Okay, click, hold down the control key, drag it across. It made a copy of that. And there's only 2 things that are in here. Okay. Can we do the same thing since this is what? How do we know what this is? Control L. That's SFTP. So I'm going to click over here to share 1. Now share 1 is something that I use remote, this on share 1, this remote USB. And I can also click, hold down the control key and drag that image over to make a copy of it on that SharePoint 1. Then I can pull that from another system. That's why I call it remote USB, to have a little fun with this. So this is my temporary location that I can now boot up on different machines and connect into Share 1 and pull that image from there. Kind of like a shared folder, because it is. They all have different names though for different purposes. Holding down the control key, scrolling backwards to make them tiny. Moving my mouse cursor, scrolling up, scrolling back. I haven't clicked anything. Let go of the control key. Now you can click back and forth. You can actually see it lighting up also, because I have a shortcut of it. If you have internal hard drives, I do. They're in here. Sometimes it requires them to be logged in, as it's asking for a password. I'm not going to bother logging in, so it'll give me an error. And but more importantly, you can also log into your USB sticks if you got USB sticks, or any storage device for that matter. Internal hard drives, external hard drives. Okay, this is my demo drive. And I could have also done it here, this way. And then I'll make this window the local system. So if I wanted another mouse cursor in my download folder, let's find another one. What do I want to use? I'll use Azenis. Okay, since I didn't click my control key, it's asking me a question. So I'm going to do a copy. I'm going to click this over here and go to my home screen. Hit Control H. Go to my dot icons. Uncompress this. Right click. Extract here. Double check the folder. I need 2 things, cursors and index theme. Okay. These all have the same, except this has more files, but it has a cursor. And where's the index in here? Cursors. There it is, right there. Sorry. Now I'm going to take the folder. This time I'm going to hold down the control key and make a copy of it, because I'm going from downloads to icons. What if I didn't do that? If I just clicked and dragged that across there, I still get the what do I want to do with it. All right, so in either case, I'm going to just do a copy. I have a new mouse cursor to play with now. All in a couple seconds. It's that one right there. I just needed to move in and out. Now, why is it changing to the yellow thing again? Because I haven't done this yet. Always log out and back in if you change mouse cursors, especially on Plasma desktops. Okay. Azenis comes in a 70. Well, this is the variable. There's actually 3 of these on several websites that you can go to Playing, you can go to gnome-look. There's a couple of places that you can get these mouse cursors. Is this one in here? I'm not sure. Let's see. I just need the spelling here. There's the 32, there's the 48, and this is the variable. So you can install it from here also. if you like this kind of cursor. It does tricks. It kind of twirls actually too. But if you need a fixed 32, keep in mind they're very small. If you got 4K screens, you're better off with a 48. If you got a lower resolution screen, maybe a small computer, small monitor, maybe the 32. This one is variable. The same one I just installed manually. And those are the sizes. It goes from 16 to 72. How do I uninstall that? Let me switch the cursors first. Okay, so you can see that it's still holding that. And I will get out of the F3, go back to my home screen, and hit delete. That's how quickly this can be uninstalled using your file manager. And it's no longer there. If I change my mind, I do a restore out of the trash can. That's the beauty of that. It's this one, actually. All right, there's a lot of things I threw out at you guys, and more importantly, mouse cursors are here. SSH stuff is over here. Your bash history, if you're doing any commands, and let me show you an example of where the history is there. I did a couple of using SSH in here, and I'll go ahead and show you the examples of that. Just type in K, immediately you'll see console lit up unless you have another one that starts with a K. But since KRunner is a beautiful thing when it comes to Plasma desktops, you can just start typing on your blank desktop. I'm going to open up console. It came up in full screen because that's the way I left it last, but I will use Control Shift and a couple of pluses to make that bigger for you. And I'm going to SSH into that one machine. And using an IP address. Oops, wrong password. Pardon me. I do recommend long passwords if you're going to do any of that kind of stuff with a secure shell. You can see that I'm logged in. I will give you disk information on the remote machine. So it's currently running at 8%. So I actually do that as a monitor. I can also run a top command remotely. And I can either use Q or Control C. And let's punch up clear. This is how much RAM that machine is running. 8 gigs. Swap file is in use. It looks like 512 is in use currently. But very limited amount of information is being used because generally this machine is at idle right now. And we're going to exit. And I'm going to try to reconnect to the same machine using its name. You can see it's called MX99. And it'll hang because it's not doing any name resolution right now. Okay, and on some systems this works fine, but I'm not getting any name resolution. What is my recourse to do SSH in this case is to remove that and put its IP address in there. Keep in mind, I'm not using private and public keys. I'm using security certificates. But I have full access to that machine. And I can drop into any folders. Tab key. Now I'm in backup. And here's my 3 backups. 7/7 is today's date. So that is the file from that. Here's those 2 SharePoints, they're in green. And I have some additional folders. I showed these 2 earlier. The 2 iPhone folders and some other folders that are in there. I'm doing this all remotely. So I can also run, again, a top command, Q to quit, a DF command, to monitor hard drive space, and I do. I can also type in uptime, which tells me how long it's been running. 20 days, 22 hours, 10 minutes since I last rebooted that machine, because it stays active. Local machine. Oops, sorry. Extra key in there. I had an extra backslash. Anyways. All right, so this machine here is running SDA2 at 5%. This is BTRFS, by the way, on this local machine I'm filming from. What else can I do? Well, I can run a top command on this machine. This is quite different from the other because you can see this has got 32 gigs of RAM here. Okay. And then I'm going to punch up clear. And we can do free on this one also. This one's got 32 gigs of RAM. Swap as set at 2 and there's nothing in use. I don't expect it to be. But this is using a lot of RAM because Plasma desktops generally do use a lot of RAM, and especially when you're filming and doing other stuff like I'm doing right now. How long has this one been up and running? 2 hours, 52 minutes. Very different from the remote machine that I was just on a couple of minutes ago. But keep in mind, folks, when you're dealing with console, you can do stuff remotely using Secure Shell also. Thank you for watching.